Ken Trahan with Lenny Vangilder. It's our First NBC Bank Weekend Review, brought to you by First NBC Bank with 35 locations throughout Southeast Louisiana and the Florida Panhandle. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNola.com. Not much to be proud of with the New Orleans Saints loss to Tampa Bay. At home as a prohibitive favorite against a bad team, the Saints were simply worse. It really is that simple.
It really is. And it was really hard to watch. Who would have thought that this team that was virtually unbeatable at home has now lost, going back to last season, 6 consecutive games at home. The so-called dome field advantage is gone. It's not the fans' fault, but it's really hard to explain. About the only encouraging thing that you could take out of this performance is the way that both sides of the football responded in the fourth quarter, and they were, this close to pulling off. No team has come back in the NFL from being down 16 points at the end of the third quarter like the Saints were yesterday since 2006. And, they were right there to do that. You take that, missed field goal, the blocked extra point things, you put those in there, and then suddenly the Saints are leading. So it was really that close to being a possibility there. And, forcing the 2 turnovers, finally getting some things going. Maybe you feel like, even in spite of the loss, that maybe some things might be set to carry over the next week at Carolina.
Well, I'll give the defense some credit for forcing the turnovers and giving the offense a chance. They simply could not capitalize. Much made about Drew Brees' inability to get the ball down the field on 2 wounded duck throws to open receivers deep. Some speculating he hurt his hand, his shoulder, whatever the case may be. Of course, we'll never really know, right?
Of course not. Now, here's the thing. Will he show up on the injury report on Wednesday? That is the question. Of course, if you leave the game for some, you have to show up on the injury report the entire next week. Well, Drew never left the game. But will he show up on there? I don't know. I remember, I believe it was 2010, there was some question about his knee and things like that, and people saying, oh, yeah, he's dealing with this. And he never showed up on the injury report, and then all of a sudden, Sean Payton went all Bill Belichick and listed like 25 guys on the injury report the next week. Everybody who had a hangnail was on there. So that's one thing I'll be watching for on Wednesday this week.
We'll see. It's on to Carolina to take on the Panthers. They'll be underdogs there. 0-2 teams don't make the playoffs, typically speaking. 0-3 teams not going to make the playoffs. That's simple. LSU, hey, they're looking at playoffs. They're up to number 8 in the nation, and they deserve it after they whacked Auburn this past Saturday in Tiger Stadium. What a brilliant performance from the outset by this LSU football team. Leonard Fournette has been second to anyone in the country. He's been second to no one, let me phrase that right, in the nation thus far. Individually, with the way he's played, he was magnificent. Brandon Harris did a good job, stepped up a little bit from his first game, managed the game well, didn't turn the ball over. Defense, much like in the first game, very good for roughly 3 quarters. Maybe a little ragged late, but that's to be expected when you have a big lead.
Yeah, and keep in mind, it was 90-something degrees out there. It was hotter on the field. I think they had the field temperature probably closer to around 115. So it will take a lot out of you at times. But what else can you say about Leonard Fournette? If the season ended right now and the ballots went in today, he's a landslide Heisman Trophy winner. And obviously we haven't seen that in this state in 56 years. But it was an extraordinary performance. And just, as I mentioned on Twitter on Saturday, look, Heismans are won not just by people rolling up numbers. And obviously he had extraordinary numbers on Saturday with a career high in yardage. Could have very well, if it was a closer game and didn't get him out of there, could have very well broken the LSU school record for yards in a game. But you do extraordinary things and make those wild things happen in front of a national TV audience when people are watching. And I think that was the case on Saturday. There's a long way to go in this season. A lot of times these things get decided later on in the year, but he has certainly put himself at the top of the mountain, at least for the moment.
No doubt. They go to Syracuse. Strange road game play. I really don't get it, frankly, but they play Saturday morning at Syracuse. I'm not sure what they get out of that. And I've said that for the last part of a year when I saw the schedule. But they go there Saturday morning, and we'll see if Fournette gets a lot of carries or not. Really does depend on how the game goes. Dinged his knee slightly on his last touchdown. Don't think it's anything to be real concerned about, but we'll see how LSU approaches the game. Tulane took care of business as they beat Maine 38-7. They're supposed to beat Maine. They're not, as we call it, a Division I school. You can get an FCS, FBS all you want, but Tulane took care of business. It started off slowly, but then they responded. Their defense shut Maine down, and their offense erupted for nearly 500 yards. That's what you want to see. That's what you expected to see, and that's what we saw.
Yeah, and again, you talk about the warmth, and granted, the game was played at night as opposed to in the afternoon. You got a team with 85 guys on scholarship. The other side's got 63 on scholarship. That is the difference between FBS and FCS at that level. That's a big difference in terms of depth. Maine's got some good players. Maine played Boston College very well into the third quarter in their opener a couple of weeks ago and got the lead early on in this game, right down the field and scored. But give Tulane credit. Well, you're right. They were supposed to win, and they came out and did it. And those young men and that coaching staff really needed this. Like we said last week, the two teams you played in week 1 and 2, Duke and Georgia Tech, are the two best teams you're going to play all year. This was probably one of the teams at the bottom of that list in terms of ranking your opponents. Now you're going to get to the middle part in your conference play. You get a week off this week, and then UCF at home. UCF's lost at home to FIU, and then this week to Furman. So you've got a real chance off a bye week to come back and now find yourself at 2-2 in a couple of weeks, and we're sitting here.
Yeah, the numbers add up. Read my piece on Tulane at sportsnola.com about that very fact, how the numbers add up and how this is not the Blake Bortles Central Florida team that we saw 2 years ago. They can't score. They average 12 points a game, and they've lost to two very suspect teams, as Lenny mentioned. And you have 2 weeks to prepare. The numbers add up for Tulane to go 2-2. Stay tuned. High school football, and, of course, another great weekend of prep football this past weekend. Hope you had a chance to check it out through sportsnola.com. Another great week to come, including the resumption of our first NBC Bank Prep Showcase with a great rivalry game Friday night.
We've had nothing but neighborhood rivalries and just, historic rivalries next 2 weeks. Trahan Friday night. We're getting there early. You need to get there early if you're coming. If you've been at that game before, they'll be lined up for hours, tailgating and getting in line to get tickets. Friday night, 7 o'clock live on Sports Nola. Watch the tape-delayed broadcast Saturday at noon on WHNO Channel 20. And then let's sneak ahead 1 week. It's the oldest rivalry in Louisiana, Holy Cross and Jesuit. It'll be live next Friday night on WHNO. And, of course, live is right here at sportsnola.com. That's Friday, October 2nd, Holy Cross and Jesuit.
Yep, look forward to it. The original Friday night on radio, statewide, 6 to midnight. 2 big games on Saturday on radio on WGSO locally. Brother Martin and John Curtis at 2 p.m. and then Holy Cross and Shaw at 7, both on WGSO 990 a.m. So it's going to be a great weekend for prep football as well. We certainly do look forward to it. Another great week this past week of football, and almost a sweep, but not quite.
Almost, but not quite. Like we said, you needed 3-0 for different reasons. You got 2 of them taken care of on Saturday. Couldn't finish the deal on Sunday.
Sports Noah TV, Monday night, 6 p.m., WHNO, TV 20. Make sure you tune in. Ricky Jackson, Brian Alley Walsh will certainly have a lot to say about what transpired this past weekend, and I'll tag along. Lenny, as always, have a great week.
All right, we'll see you later this week.
That's our First NBC Bank Weekend Review, brought to you by First NBC Bank with 35 locations throughout the greater New Orleans area and into Florida and growing. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNova.com. He's Lenny. I'm Kenny. Have a great week, and God bless you.